Season 1 of The Last of Us was a massive hit, but let's be honest, it wasn't perfect. For every emotional scene that landed, there were others that felt rushed, underdeveloped, or just off. And with Season 2 adapting one of the most controversial storylines in gaming, the pressure's on. This isn't just about continuing a good show, it's about saving it from collapse. But it's not all doom and gloom, because if the creators make the right moves, Season 2 has the potential to not only fix the issues, it could become the best thing the series has done yet. Here's how The Last of Us Season 2 can save the series. First, we gotta get into why the series needs saving. Season 1 of The Last of Us had all the ingredients of a hit: stunning visuals, top-tier performances, and some genuinely emotional moments. On top of it all, it already had a die-hard audience waiting for the story to come to life on the screen. But somewhere along the way, something just didn't land for a lot of fans. Whilst many viewers and critics loved the series, many of them walked away feeling like something was missing. The problem wasn't with the cast. Pedro Pascal nailed Joel, and Bella Ramsey had some standout scenes. The issue was pacing and emotional buildup. Big character moments were crammed into short episodes, and entire relationships that were fleshed out over hours in the game were reduced to a few short scenes. Even Joel and Ellie's bond, which is supposed to be the heart of the story, felt like it didn't fully reach its potential. And that's where the disconnect happened. Viewers were told to feel something, but they weren't always shown why they should. The most intense moments didn't always feel earned, and by the time the season ended, many fans were left wondering what could have been if the show had just slowed down. If Season 2 doesn't fix this, if it doesn't take time to actually build those connections again, it's not just going to lose viewers, it's going to lose the people who were the most invested in the story to begin with. But there's still time, and if they get the next part right, everything could change. Now, Joel's fate must be honored, because let's be real here, there's no way Joel's making out of this season alive. If the show tries to dodge that moment or twist its way out of it, it won't just break continuity with the source material, it'll cheapen everything that follows. His death was more than just a plot device, it was the emotional anchor that drove the entire second act of the story. Remove it, and the narrative falls apart. There was no rest of Ellie's story if Joel didn't meet his maker. Now, sure, some fans want the show to keep him alive. Pedro Pascal has become the face of the series, and for good reason. He carries every scene he's in, but the point of Joel's character has always been about sacrifice, consequence, and what love can make a person do. If they try to fix that by giving him a longer arc or rewriting the outcome, all they're really doing is proving that the game made a mistake. And the creators have always held on to their statement that they don't believe that it did. What the show can do though is make the moment count. If Season 2 leans into that pain instead of flinching away from it, Joel's death won't just be shocking, it will be unforgettable. And that's exactly the kind of risk the series needs to take if it wants to win back the fans who are still on the fence. But Joel's death is only half the story. For it to mean anything beyond shock value, the person behind it needs to be more than just a villain. That's where Abby comes in. Before she does though, take a minute to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell, because we got a lot more to discuss about The Last of Us. Now back to saving the show. A major way they can do that is by introducing Abby early and right. Season 2 has a rare opportunity to fix one of the biggest missteps from the game. Not the story itself, but how it was told. In the game, Abby was introduced right before the infamous golf club scene, and then players were forced to step into her shoes for hours, right after she'd killed the most beloved character in the series. That switch, it didn't work for a lot of people. It felt forced, rushed, and almost impossible to empathize with. But the show can handle it differently. By introducing Abby from episode 1, not just as a looming threat, but as a person, we get the chance to understand her world before the revenge, to show her grief, her trauma, and the weight that she's carrying. Let her be someone the audience relates to, not resents. If viewers are allowed to sit with her pain from the start, the later reveal won't feel like a betrayal, it'll feel like a tragedy. And that emotional setup is exactly what Season 2 needs to make Abby's arc hit harder. The audience doesn't need to love her right away, but they should at least understand her. Do that, and the entire second half of the story starts to make sense. And while Abby's story needs room to breathe, Joel needs one final beat to land with full impact. Not for the sake of the plot, but for the audience. Because we want one last real moment with Joel. As I mentioned before, Pedro Pascal is the emotional core of the show. His chemistry with Bella Ramsey gave the series its heart, even when the writing felt rushed. And because of that, taking him out early in Season 2 without giving us one last grounded moment would be a huge mistake. The showrunners have a golden opportunity here. Give us a full episode of Joel and Ellie just being. Let them live in that rare space of calm between storms. Quiet conversations, inside jokes, maybe even the iconic callback to the guitar lesson. It doesn't have to be flashy, it just needs to feel real. This won't just be about fan service, it's about emotional setup. There's been a long gap between seasons, and not everyone is still riding the high of their connection. Re-establishing that bond is essential. So when the blow finally comes, it won't just hurt because it's violent. It'll hurt because we just had him back, because we remembered why he mattered. And that's what makes his death linger. Not the act itself, but the silence that follows. And once Joel is gone, the story really becomes about two people, Ellie and Abby. Keeping their journeys separate worked in the game, but for the show, there's a smarter way to do it. The second game told the story in two halves. First Ellie, then Abby. It was bold, but for a lot of players, it also meant emotionally disconnecting halfway through the game and being asked to start over. That structure worked better in an interactive format where shock was part of the experience, but a show doesn't need that kind of jarring shift. In fact, it might end up giving more casual fans a reason to stop watching altogether. The problem is, both of their stories are important to the plot, so how can they make it all work? Well, it's simple, kinda. Season 2 should run both stories side by side. They will have to start building Abby and Ellie's arcs together. Different paths, same emotional stakes. One chasing justice, the other seeking revenge. Mirror their trauma, their guilt, their attempts to move forward. It has depth to both characters and gives the audience a reason to stay invested in both sides of the conflict from episode 1. More importantly, it helps with the pacing. Instead of one long emotional build followed by another, you're layering tension and payoff week by week. It gives every episode something to latch onto and avoids the risk of losing half your audience midway through the season. Handled right, this could be one of the show's biggest strengths, a dual narrative that slowly brings two broken people on a collision course. Now, the next point I want to talk about is the spores. Now, one of the biggest changes in season 1 was the complete removal of airborne spores, and while it didn't break the show, it definitely left a gap. In the game, spores were everywhere. They created tension, shaped the environment, and most importantly, explained why Ellie's immunity actually mattered. Take them out, and you lose a big part of what makes her so unique. The good news? The showrunner hasn't ruled them out completely, and season 2 is the perfect time to bring them in. Not in a way that feels like backtracking, but in a way that expands the world naturally. Maybe spores weren't as common in certain areas, but now the characters are moving into zones where they can't avoid them. Let that danger creep in slowly, and suddenly you got a whole new level of suspense. Plus, some key story moments rely on spores to make sense, like how Dina and Nora find out that Ellie is immune. Without them, that scene either doesn't happen or needs to be rewritten. Spores aren't just cool set dressing, they're part of the rules of the world. Reinforcing those rules only strengthens the narrative. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is the structure and pacing of the new season. The Last of Us Part 2 is dense. Grief, trauma, revenge, forgiveness, it's a lot to cover. Trying to cram all of that into a single season would be a disaster. Season 1 already pushed the limits by fitting an entire game's worth of story into just 9 episodes. And as good as it looked, there were moments that clearly needed more room to breathe. Season 2 can't afford to make that mistake again. The story needs space, not just for the action, but for the quiet, uncomfortable pauses in between. The flashbacks, the emotional fallout, the character detours that don't immediately push the plot forward but pay off later. Without those, you're just checking boxes. And let's not forget, this is likely the last major arc we're getting. The showrunner has said that he doesn't plan to go beyond what the game covered, which means that this is the end game, so why rush through it? By splitting season 2 into 2 parts, they don't just fix the pacing, they give fans a reason to stick around longer. More time with the characters, more tension, more investment, and most importantly, a chance to actually feel the weight of what's happening. Done right, it gives a chance to finish the story the way it deserves to be told. Up until now, we talked about what needs fixing, but let's talk about the potential. Because if season 2 gets it right, it won't just course correct, it could be something legendary. And if you're enjoying the video still at this point, then make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on if you haven't already. Now, most video game adaptations are lucky if they're even decent. The Last of Us broke that curse with its first season, but it hasn't reached its full potential yet. Season 2 is where that could happen. Not by rewriting the story, and not by overcorrecting for past backlash, but by doing something far more rare, trusting the characters to carry the weight of the story. This is less about pleasing everyone and more about embracing the complexity at the heart of this next chapter. Grief, anger, revenge, and the cost of holding on to forgiveness or hate. Let Abby be a victim, and a monster. Let Ellie make terrible choices. Let the show trust its audience to follow characters who don't always do the right thing. The game was bold, and the show has a chance to go even deeper. By expanding key moments, adding space for emotion, and refusing to talk down to the audience, Season 2 could become the rare sequel that actually elevates everything that came before it. They can't limit themselves to fixing the pacing or tweaking a few scenes. They need to bring us the full emotional power of the story when it's told without fear. If they pull it off, we won't just remember Season 2 as the one that saved the series. We'll remember it as the one that made it unforgettable. If you enjoyed this video, once again, make sure to subscribe, and of course, I'll see you in the next video.